Hi, everybody. My name is Caralea Cole. I'm a professor of photography in the Department of Art at UNLV. And today it is my pleasure to share the work created by UNLV students when they suddenly had to take their darkroom photography courses. So they were shooting film, they were developing film and printing in the darkroom. And then suddenly we went online. And I want to thank the Dean for giving me this opportunity to share the student work, and the students thank the Dean and the university as well. So when we went online, the project that the students were getting ready to shoot for is called Staged and Imagined, otherwise known as True Lies. And in this project, what they are invited to do is create imaginary worlds through image constructions in front of the camera. And the reason I call this project True Lies is because often we can unlock the truth through the imaginary and through fiction. Conceptually, what I suggested for this project is that they stage scenes relevant to their current unprecedented lived experiences. So the first student whose work I want to highlight, Roz's work has this dramatic, gritty feel. And the reason it has this feel is that Roz actually didn't want to give up on film photography. And so she actually ordered chemicals online. And she developed her own film at home in her bathroom, and then she scanned them into her scanner. And she expressed what a lot of students express, was that she said, frankly, I had an exceptionally hard time finding the spark of creative energy when I was isolating at home. And she did this from the gut, and I think this is a beautiful metaphor for what it's like to be at home during times of COVID-19. This is the work of Hannah. Hannah is a hospitality management major. She was interested in surrealism, in play. She wanted to unsettle people and also to allow people to have fun. And what she did is she only worked with objects in her home. I was continually amazed and impressed and inspired by the inventiveness of our students. This is the work of Lexi. She's a sociology and social work major. And what Lexi wrote for this series entitled Dark was that, you know, she found this time to be very interesting and deeply unsettling, and that what she wanted to do was shoot in a first-person perspective, and she was inspired by horror films. And she said she wanted to reflect the fear of the unknown and the paranoia that someone or something may be watching you. So what she did is she got up at midnight and she used a flashlight and she went around her house. And in this case, she had to shoot with her cell phone camera, which is what all students had to do all of a sudden. And so she just illuminated these bright spots in the darkness. This is the work of EDGAR GARCIA. He's a political science major. And what EDGAR did while he was isolating at home was he used household objects. You can see this, you know, wonderful sense of humor and play that EDGAR has. And in some of the photos that you don't see, his entire family participated in collaborating with him in creating these very surreal, playful scenes. This is the work of BRIANNA. She's a sociology major. BRIANNA had, you know, different from EDGAR, a different response emotionally and psychologically to what was happening to her. And she felt that as the quarantine days tallied up, she deemed them as wasted. And she also found it was hard to be motivated to do schoolwork and harder to do things that she used to do for fun. And so hers is actually a critique of technology. She found she was spending a lot of time on the screen and that she felt it wasn't feeding her. And one of the things that she did that was very inventive in these two top images, where it says the situation is fluid and continues to evolve, we are all unsure of what the future holds. She was actually taking pieces of text that were messages that were coming to us from UNLV. And this was something that when we got together at Critique, the students really related to, in that it seemed like these were messages in a bottle as we were all isolated at home. The final project that these beginning level students were doing when we suddenly went online is called Implied Narrative. I'm using a quote here from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Many stories matter. Stories have been used to dispossess and to malign, but stories can also be used to empower and to humanize. Stories can break the dignity of a people, but stories can also repair that broken dignity. So what I like to do is empower students to choose their own direction. So conceptually, they were allowed to choose their own direction for this project. But if they felt like they wanted a starting point, I suggested that they play with Dwayne Michael's idea, how do you picture the unpicturable? And I'm starting here for this particular series with the work of Annie Lynn, who's an art major. And so again, these students are doing these things in their bedroom with their camera phones. And so Annie was fascinated by shadows. And so she was creating props and she was playing with shadows in various ways. And what she wanted to do was create this eerie fantasy environment. And again, like Brianna, there's this element of critique and sophistication in her understanding of online life, in that some of her imagery was about how kids face sexual predators online. So I think that there's a real sophistication with students, with young people, about what the power of life online is and what the potential dangers of it are. So Imani Salih is a film major. I hope everybody can see how just stunning her work is. And so Imani, from the start of the semester, had been photographing in various ways her brother. So her brother is on the left. And this was before the murder of George Floyd, that she was talking in class about her, frankly, terror for her brother, that because he was, her baby brother, but a young Black man who appeared tall, that his life would be in danger as he moved through the world. And so before the murder of George Floyd, she was creating these images like the ones on the left and the one on the bottom left, where she's posing her brother with his, baby photographs. And then she went on, while we were in quarantine, she created all of these images. And then she also photographed her sister, her baby sister, and what she's very focused on is, the beauty, the resilience, the intensity of her family. LEGACEE Lane, whose image started this particular PowerPoint, as a biological sciences major, and someone else who I would also say is certainly an artist and a conceptual artist. The series on the bottom left is from the series that she wrote about, where she served as in the military as a medic. And she talks about how soldiers become depressed, suicidal, or unhappy, and a lot of them feel that they will be seen as weak if they reach out for help. And I think that she was exploring this in particular because, these kinds of feelings are magnified when we're isolating in the COVID-19 crisis that we went through. And then the other series that she explored simultaneously, she's really inspired by the work of Lorna Simpson, where she's capturing parts of her body that she loves and the parts of her body that she has a difficult time loving. Faith Jenkins, the image on the right, you can see that it says here that Faith is an art major. She's from Hawaii, and she actually went home to Hawaii for a brief period. And I find this image quite eerie. And she was really, frankly, loving these images that she had to shoot in color and convert to black and white and show people in these, idyllic spots and social distancing. Yeah, I have to say, every time I gaze at that image of people walking towards that pier and into the ocean, I think this is such a powerful image. And then when she came home and she was social isolating on the left in her home, she started playing with double exposures, working with text, to give us a sense of what she felt like her life was like, during the isolation. This is another series by Roz. I'm showing 4 of 6 images. So they're diptychs. They're meant to be viewed, an image of the individual and then an image of the flower. And you can see that this is a time of intense introspection for students. Roz writes in her artist statement, "Sweetness in the morning and acidity at night. A rose awakened at sunrise. I gave myself to someone for the first time, to a boy who spent over a year watering me, nurturing me, telling me sweet things to help me bloom. He taught me about love and life and art and ambition. That same day, I was molested while I was asleep by another boy who had meant a lot to me. He taught me how to dance and how to laugh. We had known each other since we were kids. This is that story. Of course I love you. I just see you differently. Is he a threat to others? Did she tell you everything that happened? That's not what he's saying happened." What was interesting, this is a beautiful body of work, I will say, very conceptually strong and visually strong. But when we did our online discussion of work, one of the things that stood out for me was that 80% of the students in the class said, "When I was sexually assaulted." And I think that one of the things that Roz did was tap into something that most of the students had experienced. And then through our online discussion, we were able to have, a very thoughtful discussion about this. HALLE Thayer is a psychology major. And one of the things that HALLE did was limit herself to things that were in her bedroom. So the image on the left and the image on the top are from this bedroom series called Anxiety and Phobia. She talks about how she had dealt with anxieties and the phobias in her life, but they had retreated until COVID-19. And I think these are really stunning, visual representations of how it can feel in these times of isolation. And then the other project she did concurrently was COVID-19 graffiti. And over the course of a few weeks, somebody in her neighborhood started to do this really interesting graffiti. So this image on the bottom right says, "It all ended here." And here I'm moving to the work of Sam Myers. She's an art major and clearly interested in political commentary, and also Sam has this wonderfully dark sense of humor. So she stepped out and she was looking at, what is very particular to Las Vegas in this time. So we see this coronavirus-free lap dances, which is something that would seem alien to anybody who doesn't live in Las Vegas. Who are you without capitalism? And here on the right, we see this really fascinating portrait of her parents kissing while, fully protected. Clara Tang is an art major. She's also a musician. And this was a really interesting piece because what she did was play with punctuation and how just by moving a comma, we change the meaning of things. And in these very subtle images, just by changing whether there's movement, blurred or frozen action, we change the meaning of the image itself. And I'm going to end here with 2 pages by James Bui, who's a psychology major, and I'd also say an outstanding conceptual artist. And so when we were forced, indoors immediately, he did this series, which is quite humorous. Things are bad when the plague doctor self-quarantines. And then as he got used to these altered circumstances where he no longer had access to film and the darkroom, he did this wonderful project where he shot hovering above, this famous Las Vegas monument. And like Clara, he paired his images of slowly moving down and settling to the earth with these very interesting lines of text. She was an open book. He was illiterate. People tell me I'm condescending. That means I talk down to people. There is no I in denial. So I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this work. It's really a privilege to work with the students of UNLV, and I hope I've done these students' work justice and done them proud, and I want to say hi to all my students. Thank you.